Thank you so much for providing this opportunity to come to this August gathering. It is a great forum, and it was a requirement of the time that we should get together and understand the real problem of extremism. I come from Pakistan. I'm author of several books on relating to militancy in our region. When we had still this morning, we heard speakers after speakers talking about the danger of or the threat presented by Daesh. There's no doubt that Daesh present the most brutal form of militancy and extremism the Islamic world has seen. But it is not the only organization when we talk about it. I come from a country which has been the venue of militant war for the last 12 years. More than 60,000 people have been killed in this act of terrorism and extremism. The violence may have come down because of certain action of the government, but the problem remains. The problem is, it's not just that some of the militants have been killed, they have been annihilated, or they have been actually removed for certain areas. The real threat and the danger is that ideology. When we talk about IS, we have heard this name for the last 2 years, maybe 3 years. But this ideology has been there for a very long time. We have seen actually what's no difference between the young children, school children being massacred in Peshawar in Pakistan. 150 children were killed by the Taliban. And what is the common between them and the IS, which is much more active in Middle East, is that the same ideology, the same extremism, which believes in terrorism, which believes forcing on their ideology, retrogressive ideology through force. And that is the real danger. But talking about this, one should also understand the source of this extremism. Because unless we understand the sources of terrorism or the extremism thing, we can go nowhere. The basic thing, I think, one of the reasons is the intervention, the foreign intervention. Like Iraq, look actually where the Daesh has grown. Those areas where the state has collapsed, the state authority has been destroyed, the state has been disintegrated. That provides a favorable atmosphere for the organization like Daesh to fill that the gap. Millions of Iraqis have been killed in the war which was forced upon them by foreign intervention. Syria has also become a kind of venue for proxy war. And then we saw the rise of IS there too. The example of Libya is before us, where now we have 3 governments. Well, this has to be addressed. But when I'm talking about the foreign intervention, we should see into ourselves also. Yes, foreign intervention is to be blamed, but we have to do some kind of introspection in our own countries. Because extremism has also roots within the country, within the nation, within the society. And that is basically has to be addressed. In Pakistan, for example, it has taken a long time for this extremism to take ground. I will not go back much into the history, but it's important to refer to the history. That was 1980s when we saw Pakistan becoming the main center of what is called jihadists from all over the Muslim world. They were brought there with a certain plan. And don't forget about it, the person who first raised the slogan of jihad was not a Muslim, but Mr. Brzezinski, who was National Security Advisor of the United States at that point. So that was a ruthless use of Islam for a purpose, for a proxy war that created a kind of, I will say, the militancy, or what, I will not use the Islamic militancy, but it is basically an ideology which thought that this could be used across the world, Muslim world. And no wonder that whenever we talk about Egypt, when we talk about Algeria, we talk about Libya, all of them have one thing common, what is called Afghan warriors coming back home and create those organizations which threaten the security of those countries. I think that is basically, again, we are seeing that. It's not the issue that we shall have, it's not only Daesh we have to fight. It's extremism. But basically, when we are talking about extremism in the Muslim world, we should not forget that there are other impetus which allows them to flourish. For example, I will give you the rise of right-wing rhetoric in West. Nothing could be a sound of music to Daesh when we hear Trump, who is one of the candidates for the United States president, or the other person, Carson, talks about profiling Muslims. There has been an incident, it's a very unfortunate incident which happened in the United States few weeks ago. It was very unfortunate. And unfortunate is that a Muslim couple was involved. And they were certainly also indoctrinated by the extremist ideology. But look actually the kind of reaction. America has seen more than 24 terrible, violent actions in their campuses. Scores of people have been killed. But yes, we should condemn this action too. But turning into an Islamic phobia is the biggest danger and threat, because now everybody talks there that Muslims should be under surveillance and they should be, then we have also heard that don't take Muslim migrants into your country because they bring extremism, which is completely wrong. These people who are leaving their country, they are forced to leave this country because of certain circumstances, the war which has been forced on them. So this is, I think, what we are witnessing, a world in turmoil now. Is rightly pointed out in the morning and in this session too, that extremism is not confined to one religion or to Islam. Extremism throughout the world has created a polarization. The reaction in the Western countries, I think I'm scared by that. When I heard that extremist right wing has won local government election in France, or the narrative is dominated in America by the right wing, who wanted to wage a kind of war against Muslims. One has to see all those things because historical perspective is important. If we just talk about superficially that how can we contain Daesh, what kind of action should be taken against Daesh, it is not enough. Where we are sitting here, we are sitting among the people who actually want to understand this phenomena and also come to some kind of conclusion, and then actually some kind of, that is very important. Daesh must be defeated, but more importantly, that ideology should be fought, and this is not just one-sided war. This is basically has to be an international in this sphere. And I think what common between the extremists, whatever in the United States, Western countries, they are also, I see this extremist viewpoint, and the extremists like Daesh Al-Qaeda and others, is that both want a clash of civilization. They believe in that. They want actually a polarized world, and each one give fuel to the other ideology. And I think when we're talking about, we are gathered here, it's good to have this kind of forum. I believe actually what is important at this point of time, to have an alternative narrative. Because in absence of a moderate narrative, which we had discussed this morning, almost we all agreed that Islam is not a religion of violence. It's not a religion which has basically cause of this violence, but this ideology. So now what we have to do is to build a narrative which basically strengthen the moderation in Muslim countries. And that narrative could only happen if we have actually this kind of exchanges, but much more so. Then we also have to have understanding within the countries also. We can't actually just say, oh, foreign, the West, again, all the time actually West, but we have also seen what is causing the discontent among the youth, which have become the major instrument in those wars. Somebody rightly pointed out is that it's not like the economic deprivation. Some people say there's economic poverty and others breed extremism, which may not be true totally. Right in the morning, somebody actually gave example of how the educated have been joining this ideology. That's exactly happening in our country too. Most of the terrorist attacks, it is taking place in Pakistan, were either masterminded, organized by people who are highly educated, graduates of secular institutions. They were also basically influenced with that extremist ideology. And then actually we also have to examine why this kind of frustration is basically also the weakness of the state. I'm not talking about the countries like Iraq and others, that's basically very close. But in countries like Pakistan, there's also a problem of the weak state. And the state, when weak, that gives a kind of favorable ground to them. Then we have to also examine actually what is being taught to our students. Why this kind of propaganda appeal to those people. And that is basically a kind of hatred and a constant war with each other. That is also provides this kind of extremism. As far as Pakistan, I think probably the more focus was on the Middle East this morning, and rightly so. This is on the eye of the storm now. But people have forgotten that this region, our region, Pakistan, Afghanistan, has been the major kind of center of violence. And millions of people have been killed there. The problem with the international community that they forget very easily what happened in the past, and they do not take any lessons. I mean, human life of human being is basically of no importance. The war is thrust on those areas, proxy war is conducted, and then actually the country leave those regions, battle-ravaged region to cope with themselves. Look actually what happened over the last 30 years to this region. The war which was started in 1980s has not finished. And that is basically should also provide some kind of food for thought. And again, I'll thank you for organizing this conference. And I hope that it will be not one time, but it should be a constant engagement among the people who really want a peaceful world. Thank you so much.